Today we are going to be reviewing the West Liberty University lesson plan template, as during this week you will be creating a lesson plan. So this is what the lesson plan looks like, and you do have this attachment in Sakai, and we're going to go through this plan step by step. So the first item that you will need is a title. You are going to decide what you want to title this lesson plan. Second grade mathematics, 12th grade history. You create the title, and you can be creative or as simplistic as you want in creating this title. Next, the creator of this plan. This is where your name is going to go, as you are the creator. The subject, again, math, science, English, social studies, that's going to go there. And then the grade level that you are teaching. So whatever that grade level is, pre-K through 12. The duration of time. How long do you think this lesson plan is going to take to complete? And this can vary based on lessons and based on school districts. For example, if this was an elementary school PE lesson, it would need to be at least 30 minutes. If this was an elementary school reading lesson, it would probably be 90 minutes. If it's middle school and high school, it could be 40 to 45 minutes. But if that school runs on a block schedule, then your lesson could be upwards of 90 minutes. So you decide on the time it's going to take to complete your lesson. Your materials. What are you going to need to complete this? Are students going to need Chromebooks? Are they going to need pencils? Are they going to need markers or highlighters or Sharpies? Are they going to need books? Are they going to need paper? Whatever materials are needed for this lesson to be completed, you're going to put here. Maybe that day you're going to be playing some sort of game. Any materials, again, that you will use throughout the lesson, you list here. Next, you will list the essential questions. And this is something that we have not yet had the opportunity to discuss in our course. So if you were taking the 16-week version of this course, you would have discussed with me essential questions. So here's a little crash course on essential questions. So essential questions, they express the reason for learning. They are open-ended, so they do not have one single correct answer. So an essential question is not asking the students, what is your favorite color? An essential question is something, again, that there are multiple answers for. So you don't want an answer that's one word or an answer that is yes, no. These questions are used to have debate, to explore further questioning, for students to be able to re-examine these questions over and over again. So, good essential questions are thought-provoking. They hook the students. They make the students want to learn more about the topic. Essential questions are questions that teachers should ask themselves. As a teacher, you should be saying, in this lesson, what do I want my students to remember and to be able to do? Or what do I want my students to reflect on? Or what do I want my students to know a year from now? So here are some samples of essential questions. And I did pull these from a teacher, Ron Jones, and these were on the State Department of West Virginia's website. So one question is, why is it important to be tolerant of others? Again, there is no one single correct answer for this question. What roles do encouragement and determination play in overcoming limitations? How do labels and stereotypes affect our relationships with people? And then what are the effects of labeling and stereotyping others? So again, here are just some examples of essential questions. If you're doing an elementary lesson, your questions will probably not be like this exactly. They may be simpler. And if you're doing a high school lesson, they may be a little more challenging than what you see here. But these are some examples of essential questions. Next, you're going to need to add in West Virginia content standards and CSOs. And those are available to you in the tree. And I did give you the link to get to the tree. So I wanted to show you quickly how you navigate the tree. So up here in the left-hand corner, it says early learning, pre-K through 5, and then middle and secondary learning. So you would click on either the grade level in early learning or the content area and middle and secondary to get to your CSOs. So let's go ahead and start with selecting second grade under early learning. And when I select on second grade, as you can see over here, it's showing me the content standards for English Language Arts, Math, and Social Studies. So let's go ahead and select English Language Arts. And it's going to take me to all the second grade content standards. So if I am possibly working with my students on phonics and word recognition, I can open this up and I can see that CSO, knowing and applying grade level phonics and word analysis skills in decoding words. So I then must decide, is that what we're working on currently? Does that CSO fit in my lesson plan? Can I have multiple CSOs that fit in my lesson plan? Absolutely. Let's go ahead and switch over quickly to middle school and secondary. Let's pick mathematics. So when I click on the mathematics link, it's going to give me the CSOs for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade over here, and then the high school standards over here. So let's go ahead and click 8th grade. And in exploring these 8th grade standards, maybe I'm teaching geometry. So I would look at the different standards listed for geometry to see which ones are going to meet the needs of my lesson. So maybe I think understanding that two-dimensional figures are congruent to one another is going to fit into my lesson. So then this would be one of the CSOs that I select. Can you select more than one CSO per lesson? Absolutely. As a former language arts teacher, there were times where I would maybe teach 6 or 7 CSOs in one lesson, depending upon what we were learning. So that's where you're going to go to find your CSOs. Next, your learning objectives. This is what you want students to be able to do. So you start out your learning objectives stating, students will be able to. And then you tell the audience what the students will be able to do. Your audience in this case normally is your principal, as your principal will be reviewing these. For your situation, your audience is going to be me as I review your lesson plan. And this also should be geared for a substitute teacher. So on a day maybe that you're absent, that sub's going to come in and say, okay, I now know that the student should be able to do these following things in completing the lesson. Academic content language. This is vocabulary that is specific to your content area. So maybe if this were a language arts lesson and I was teaching about alliteration and personification, I would want to list those words and define them here. So these are words relevant to your content area. I do ask that you list them and define them so that anyone reading your lesson plan knows exactly what you mean. I'm not a person with a strong math background, so if I were teaching a math lesson, I would want those terms listed out here for me to help me to be more aware. Next is differentiation, modifications, and accommodations for focused students. Because this lesson is a made-up lesson, and this is not a lesson that you will actually be teaching in the classroom, you won't have focus students. However, as you work through classroom observations, you will be picking students that have some sort of need in the classroom and that they require some kind of modification or accommodation. So for this, you can be creative. Maybe you're going to have a student who is nonverbal in your class. How would you make modifications for that student? Or maybe you're teaching PE and you have a student who's in a wheelchair. How would you make accommodations for that student? Maybe you have a gifted student in your class. So how would you make accommodations for that student? So this just, you are listing 2 accommodations, modifications, or differentiations that you would make for students. So please just select 2, and if you need assistance with this, please email me or we can WebEx and I'd be more than happy to assist you. Next in your lesson plan, you're looking at types of assessments. There are 2 types of assessments. There are formative assessments and summative assessments. Actually, there are many more types of assessments than formative and summative. But today, we're just going to be looking at assessment of learning versus assessment for learning. So first, let's talk about what summative assessment is. Summative assessment is there to sum up what the students have achieved and what they know in one setting. So this is something that you would use maybe after 2 weeks of teaching the students the Pythagorean theorem, or students are reading a story in class. You are going to give them a test to show what they know. So it's an attempt to determine what students know about a subject after the instruction has been completed. So after you've taught the Pythagorean theorem, or after you've taught them, a week's worth of lessons on poetry, you're going to assess in one sitting what the students know. That's a summative assessment. Then the other type of assessment that we're going to be looking at is a formative assessment. So formative assessments involve gathering information about your students' performance. This is something as simple as a thumbs up if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, that's a simple formative assessment. Collecting data on students' performance as they work towards a goal. Using things like Clicker in the classroom or Kahoot in the classroom. That is a formative assessment of students' learning. So the difference between formative and summative assessment, after you give a summative assessment, you're going to stop because you need to grade and reflect and see what the students have learned and what they still need to improve upon. With formative assessment, it's continual improvement. You teach and you keep teaching and you keep doing quick checks for understanding to see what students know and what they still need to work on. Next in our lesson plan, you're going to see this box that says estimated time. So up at the top, if you said your lesson was going to be 40 minutes, you now have 3 areas in which you need to state how long they're going to take. So how long will the introduction of your lesson take? In the introduction, this is where you want to hook the students in to what they are learning. So you're going to say something to the effect of, to start off the lesson, as students come into the classroom, I will have entry tickets for them. They will take their entry ticket, sit down at their seats, and for the first 5 minutes, they will be writing their thoughts on whatever topic you have listed on the entry ticket. So you would write that information here, and over here you would say 5 minutes. Next, engagement and teaching procedures. This is where you're going to list step by step what you plan to do in the lesson. So number 1, I plan to introduce the new materials to the student. Those materials will be listed on the smartboard. Number 2, students, after being introduced to the material, will then work in groups to read a short poem that I provide them with. Okay, so step by step, what you're going to do in the class and how long that's going to take. And then finally, your summary and your closure. How are you going to draw an end to the lesson? Maybe you're going to choose to use an exit ticket, again, a formative assessment, as students leave the room. Maybe you're going to choose to give the students a test or a quiz on their knowledge. Maybe you're going to provide them with homework, to give you examples. And again, you'll say how long that will take. Now, if this were a lesson that you would have taught in the classroom, you would next provide us with a personal reflection. However, this is not a lesson that you are going to be teaching, so therefore, no self-reflection will be needed. Again, this is just a quick overview of our West Liberty University lesson plan template. As you continue to progress in your educational courses, you will gain more knowledge and more insight into this template. I just wanted to give you a little bit of experience and an opportunity to create your first lesson plan. If you have